essentially we got stuck on 3 million a year for 5 years. And I didn't really think too much of it, but I was like, it'll get better next year. Just keep pushing the brand. We're going to get better. And we were a team of 12. It stopped growing. And I thought, man, I've got to do something about this. We were predominantly a wholesale business. I somehow started reading books and started thinking, what is my why? Like, I don't want to have to go back to be a carpenter. I thought if we could build something with a why, could we come to work with a purpose?
Welcome to Long Run Labs, a weekly podcast from the team behind For the Long Run podcast, telling the stories of those running the outdoor industry where endurance and entrepreneurship meet. This one's for a specific crew, pun intended, and you'll know if it's you. If you're headed to Western States this year, and especially if you're going to be out there pacing or crewing a runner, I want you with us Thursday morning before the race. We're doing a shakeout run with a maze fit in Olympic Valley, easy miles, nothing heroic, just shaking the legs out before the big weekend. And a maze fit is taking care of coffee and bagels. Western States is the runner's day, but you and I both know the truth. The race gets run on the backs of the people supporting that runner, the pacer pulling them through the dark miles, the crew at the aid stations who somehow have the exact thing you need before you know you need it. That's the community I want in one place Thursday morning before the chaos starts. A maze fit is along for it, and if you've been curious about their watches, the pacer mapping is useful for keeping your runner on course when it counts. So if you're going to be at Western States, pacing, crewing, or just in the area, and you want to start the weekend right, come find us Thursday morning in Olympic Valley. I've got a limited number of their new Cheetah 2 Ultra watches to share with runners who are crewing or pacing or supporting. Reach out to me directly and I'll make sure you have all of the details on both items. And welcome back. We have Jason Daniel, normally from Australia, but today from Austin, Texas, joining here on Long Run Labs. Jason, thanks so much for taking some time to chat.
Thanks, Jonathan. I appreciate the time. It's really cool to be on and share the story and throw down.
Awesome. Well, the first question is a bit of a doozy, and that question is, who is Jason?
Okay. Who is Jason? Well, Jason is a father of 3. He is an aspiring athlete, I suppose. I grew up wanting to be a professional motocross athlete. So my journey of how this brand came about has been a long journey of 20 plus years. But yeah, I think I'm a father of 3. I have a great wife, my wife, Ali. We met when we were 18. So we were very young, 20 plus years, just on 20 years ago. So it's been a journey and I love fitness. I'm obsessed with it. So that's me. And I'm obsessed with building a brand that has taken a very long time, which I suppose I can throw down the story if you want.
Yeah, let's hear it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll try and do it as quick as possible because I can go on a little bit. So you just tell me if I'm talking too much. But
yeah,
it essentially the brand, it was 99. I was 13. I was riding BMX and I was actually riding with 18-year-old pro BMX riders. And one actually went off to win X Games 3 years in a row for BMX Dirt. And I was trying to jump this really big jump. Now, I think it was big, but maybe it wasn't. I was 13 and I couldn't jump it. And I would say I was annoyed, but these guys were like, hey, you're a loose kid, because I was the youngest. They were 18 and, they called me the loose kid. And essentially that nickname kind of stuck for quite a few years. And then in 2002, I was 16. I was in grade 11 in school, and a few friends of mine said to me, you should turn this into a clothing brand, which I had no idea what a clothing brand meant. I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was. I had no idea about any of it. And I was like, okay. By then I'd actually got into motocross racing. So I got out of BMX and into motocross racing. I was obsessed with motocross and I really wanted to be an athlete. And for the next 5 years to 2007, I finished school. I completed high school in 2003. I did a couple of different jobs out of school, but I ended up a year later after school becoming a carpenter and building houses and working as a full-time apprentice, finishing my trade at the start of 2010. And at 2007 hits, and we decided to change the brand organically to LKI, so it's abbreviation, Loose Kid Industries, and said, I said, I want this to be my career. I think I can actually make this work, but I still need to have my job as an apprentice because that's how I need to tick that off. Took me 3 years. I was still racing motocross on weekends, showing up at the local motocross track, all over, traveling, taking a one-page catalog to a retailer, trying to sell the brand to a local sports or surf retailer, trying to sell some t-shirts. And in that kind of 3-year period, I suppose I was just going hard every morning before work, my lunch break, after lunch, after work, I was just working, training, racing on weekends. 2010, I went full time. So I finished my apprenticeship and went full time LKI. And for the next 8 years, we just did lots of different things. And when I say that, I mean, we made motocross gloves, motocross socks. We made life jackets for water sports. We made sportswear. We made streetwear. And I was just pushing us into every single channel, which really was doing too many things at once. And I kind of, like I said, I didn't go to university. I wanted to be an athlete, so I was obsessed with fitness. So I was kind of just learning on the job. You can almost say an on the job MBA. And I actually did a 3-day self development course in 2015 called Landmark Forum. And that,
I'm familiar with that. I've done it, so I know the framework.
Yeah, so I took my wife and my mum there. We went. It was a full on 3 days. We actually pay for our team now to do that course, which is super special. And that was kind of the start of me opening up to want to learn more. I wouldn't say I was really interested in learning or reading books. I kind of would say I thought I knew everything, where I definitely didn't. And March 2018, my wife felt we had our first Hendrix in March to the knee, my wife, and that was kind of the eye opener to go, okay, like I'm in the real world now. This brand that I've had for so long, and it'd been 11 years, LKI, had stopped growing for 5 years. And essentially we got stuck on 3 million a year for 5 years. And I didn't really think too much of it, but I was like, it'll get better next year. Just keep pushing the brand. We're going to get better. And we were a team of 12. It stopped growing. And I thought, man, I've got to do something about this. We were predominantly a wholesale business. And I thought, okay, well, I somehow started reading books and started thinking, what is my why? Like, I don't want to have to go back to be a carpenter. I thought if we could build something with a why, could we come to work with a purpose? And this happened over a couple year period of reading books and trying to search for it, making lots of different products. And September 2018, we actually changed the company to LSKD, which is the abbreviation. And when we changed it, we thought, let's do it with a purpose. And let's develop products for our community as opposed to what the retailer wanted as a wholesale business, which has led to our, mission of inspiring our community to be 1% better every day. And then let's develop technical product, and, work and become a functional fitness brand with this edgy aesthetic. And that came about from training in a Fit Stop. I grew up with the founder of Fit Stop. They've got about 180 locations now. It's a functional fitness gym, and it was training and running. And I thought, wow, like, I felt a part of something, and from when I'd finished racing motocross. And yeah, we changed and just said, let's really build organically. Let's do it with a why when we come to work every day, and let's enroll our team on books, because if we're learning, let's get them reading, and let's create something with a why instead of just trying to sell product. That is very important, but you need the purpose at the start. And then I did my first half marathon in 2019, and then went off to doing marathons after that, but as well. But yeah, to see it where it's gone from there to now, we have 31 stores in Australia and New Zealand. We're opening another 10 more this year. We're building in the US community. We have a team of over 700 now, which is quite surreal. I don't think we would be in the position we are today if I hadn't had those, I suppose 15 years of learning and mistakes and things like that. And we still make mistakes, don't get me wrong, but I was really grateful I got to learn through that journey and across all aspects of sports, athletes, product development. So yeah, that's some of the story.
I love it. I love establishing the why. I have a podcast for the long run that's all about exploring the why. And we talk about how if you want to run your first 5K, you want to run your first marathon, you want to fast marathon, 100 miles, whatever, you have to know why you're doing it. And knowing why you do it doesn't make it easier or give you a shortcut, but it makes the hard days a little more manageable. And it really establishes that purpose around, like, why are we doing this? And we're showing up to work every day. Is it for a paycheck, or is it for a part of something bigger? And so at least on the running side in particular, I think it becomes critical if you have goals. And obviously on the business side, there are goals, and hitting them requires planning and showing up. And a friend said the other day, shout out to Phil, something to the effect of, like, successful people are usually the people who just last longest. It's not like they don't need to have the best ideas. They just need the most surface area and exposure. And it's really about consistency over time versus, being a winner on day one.
It's a great piece of feedback. I did ask myself that a lot through the journey. Why am I doing this? This has been a long journey.
Yeah. Okay. So you've been doing it for 20 years, but I want to wind back to when you were a carpenter, when you finally realized you needed to take the leap to entrepreneurship, when you didn't even know what entrepreneurship was. I find the moment of breaking stasis to be fascinating. And I was stuck in a period for about 2 years where I couldn't figure out how to do this. I wanted to quit my job. I wanted to go all in on my own things, and I just couldn't do it. Eventually I did. But along the way, I asked probably 50 different people, like, what did it take for you to bet on yourself? So, Jason, what did it take for you to bet on yourself?
It's a good question. Looking back on 2007, I was still a teenager, and I think when I finished school in 2003, I actually did a lot of work as an electrician. So I would get, with a school, they call it a school-based traineeship, and I would get a day off a week and I would work as an electrician. And I thought I'm going to be an electrician when I finished school. And there's some funny stories about I actually forgot to go to my first day of work in January because I went to the pool swimming, and my boss got up me straight away because he's like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm just going to the pool training." He's like, "Mate, it's not school. Get here." But I lasted 3 months as an electrician and I didn't like it. And I thought, you know what, this isn't for me. And then from that, I ended up working for a family friend in a bricklaying yard, like managing a bricklaying yard, essentially filling up sandbags, organizing crane trucks to bricks and take around to job sites, which I was really getting to learn logistics and as well. And I got a 1 day off a week to go riding. And that 1 day off a week I got to go riding, for motocross, it was a Tuesday. Over time, I realized I'm probably not going to become a pro athlete. Like I made it to state pro, but I'm not going to get paid for this. And I got to spend a lot of time with professional athletes that got paid to do it. And I thought, okay, this is not where I'm going. So I need to get a trade. So I ended up calling up a carpenter and said, I'll come work for you for free for 3 months.
That's just like being a pro athlete today.
Yeah.
Free.
So I said, I'll work for you for free every Tuesday. And I did it for 3 months before he gave me an apprenticeship. And then I went back down to $7 an hour and $240 a week. And I was getting paid a lot more than that working in the bricklaying yard. And I was 18. But I thought, you know what, I got to get a trade. And then I was into my apprenticeship and realized, actually, I have this brand that when I go to the motocross track, everyone keeps asking for the product. When are you making new stuff? Like you make the same tees over and over because we'd had product for 5 years, but I really didn't do too much with it. We stocked a few retailers. I always talked about it becoming something, but I hadn't really committed. And I think after doing all these different jobs, trying to figure out what do I want to do, this brand kept coming back at me. And I think about it, it kind of comes up now going, yeah, I actually was like, I think I can do this. Maybe I can build something and maybe this could be my job. And it wasn't thinking about a gap in the market. Hey, there's this opportunity. It's a white space, the strategic thinking of it. I was like, man, mate, people keep asking for product. And when we're not riding, we're either wearing it to the gym or even back then, maybe a music festival. So I was like, can we wear product? And and my friends I was racing with and the local athletes were wanting to wear the brand. So it was really organic. And I thought, okay, I can do this. So it kind of happened from just being there, having it and working so many different jobs, realizing that this is what I want to do. So it's quite funny when I think about it, it's kind of just happened organically and I just went at it, any plan.
So there are two ways to build businesses or content or whatever. And one is to build for an opportunity and a specific person or group or market opportunity. You go through a SWOT analysis and you understand what are the opportunities and what are the strengths that you bring to it. The other is just create for yourself and create for the people around you. And much of like how I think about content creation and this podcast and my other podcasts, like I would have these conversations even if I weren't recording them. And for me, it's just like a personal curiosity. Like I specifically don't do much research because I really I'm curious about you. I don't want to find, preconceived things on the internet versus like, I just want to learn about what makes people tick and then kind of learn from them. And so I find that the people who build for themselves, not selfishly, but like out of curiosity, the people who love it are love it even more than if you've like created something to capitalize on a market opportunity.
Yeah, you're totally right there. I mean, when, I was obsessed with motocross and becoming an athlete, and you would show up to the track and there'd be 500 different athletes with all different age divisions. You became friends with everyone, and we had a little pop-up tent there selling t-shirts out of it. And essentially where our creator community value was happening back then and how we show up in the local fitness community. And, all the athletes are wanting product. And so for me, it was like, okay, well, I better make product for them and for me. And to be honest, in the early days of LK, like Loose Kid to LKI, I was actually quite embarrassed of it randomly. Not embarrassed of the brand. It was like, oh, people like it. Wow. Like, are we doing a good job? What are we doing? Like, wouldn't say I had self-doubt, but everyone, I didn't, why could a kid
imposter syndrome?
Yeah, like why could a kid from Logan build a brand? There's these big brands out there already. And then you start reading all these stories. And when I started reading books, I started to realize all these founder stories and how cool they are all started from nothing. And they were passionate about something. And I think the evolution of LKI to LSKD was definitely an evolution I personally went through, where I finished racing motocross. I was essentially looking for something. 2010, when I stopped racing, after I broke my wrist, and I thought, you know what, I'm not going to go back to it. I had a lot of friends get some pretty big injuries, and thought, LKI is my career. Like, that's my athlete mindset. I was just training in the gym. I was just lifting, training in the gym. It wasn't until 2017 when I joined the functional fitness community gym where I really felt a part of it. And then I did a competition they hosted called Power Players, and was like, this is awesome. And I ended up finishing in the top 3 and was like, okay, what's next? There's nothing like this. Now there's the High Rocks movement, which I've done a few now and love it. But after that, I ended up doing a triathlon, then I did a half marathon. So it really was a part of almost the journey I had gone on of sports, feeling like I was missing being a part of something. And then I found it and thought, a lot of action sports athletes had really moved into fitness like this for training as well. So it kind of was an evolution that I was also involved in. I just turned 31. So I think I was in that right place, learning, thinking, could we build a brand within this community? And it really still resonated with action sports. So it was, I would say it was a big part of my journey, and not just building product, but finding purpose around that. I read a comment the other day when I finished High Rocks event. My partner and I, Jane, like our mixed doubles partner, we made it to Worlds, and which is quite cool that we qualified. Don't think I can go. I can't make it, but I read a comment about, oh, it's really cool. The founder and CEO is doing these events, living and breathing the brand, and I really made me think about it. Going, well, you know what? Like if I wasn't lucky enough to be the founder of this brand, would I still be doing this stuff? And I was like, yeah, I would. Like, I'm obsessed. I literally plan my days around, okay, what time can I train, and what time do I need to be at the office, and how does it work with the family? And, so I was like, actually, I would do this anyway, because I actually just love being a part of it and love training, and, setting goals. It's like, all right, I'm setting the next goal because it's the journey, not about the event itself. So yeah, it was quite fascinating. I was looking back on it in the last few weeks thinking, yeah, that, I'd do it anyway, because I love it.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes the day-to-day, for me, it gives structure and purpose around, I know I'm going to go for my 8 to 10 miles. And that's just what happens every single day. And it gives structure and stability in a world of chaos. Okay. Yeah. So 2017, 2019 or so, we're just seeing the rise of run clubs and group fitness and community-based events. The pandemic hasn't happened yet, and we haven't seen this explosion in running and the demand for in person yet, but it's still happening. Talk to me about for you getting into the endurance side of things and what that unlocked for you, both on the personal and professional side. How does that differ from motorsports and what you've seen in functional fitness?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I try to look at my personal experience of what I went through. When I ran my first half marathon in 2019, July, the Gold Coast half, a good friend of mine, Matt Kirby, and myself and a couple other guys ran it, and we were only running twice a week. Actually, I was doing like a 10K, and every week I was adding a kilometer on to get ready for it because someone told me to do that. I didn't even know what any of it meant. I just thought, okay, cool, I'll do that and I'll go run it. And when I look back on it, firstly, having a newborn, I was like, well, I can inspire, I can inspire my son, and obviously now I've got 3 kids, but I can inspire them. So that was like, okay, well, this gives me purpose to inspire them when I'm running. But I think when I did it, obviously from doing a short distance to a longer distance, if that's what we're talking about, it's so different from like a hour race to a 3-hour race running a marathon. I mean, the difference of training is so different. But But we always, when we have our pillars with train and run and all day active, and we started really building LSKD running in 2019 when we first started running, and thought this is really cool. And so 2019 hit, and I ran my first half. I think it was an hour 28, and I probably let my heart rate get too high. It was around the 190 average, and I was sick for the rest of the day. So it's probably not what you're meant to do. But I went, okay. What I realized from that is I can put myself in the hurt locker. That's probably not the best thing to do, but it also gave me that fix from not racing motocross, where you got 40 bikes going into turn. The adrenaline is wild. I was like, okay, well, I'm kind of getting this adrenaline fix that I was missing for 9 years of not racing. And then COVID hit, and the next year I actually ended up doing a powerlifting set, a 10-week, because I really wanted to hit a 200 kilogram deadlift. So I did that with a friend of mine in his garage during COVID. So I actually took a year off kind of running, and then went, okay, well, I wanted to get stronger for running, because I knew that if I had strength, I'd be good for potential injuries. And I wanted to hit some goals, and I was still running throughout it. And then went in 2021, thought, let's do a full marathon. And I had no idea even what cadence meant. I was just kind of going out and running it. So I would say that my journey in running has been really organic, but also the difference between running a marathon to say a sprint race is obviously so different, because kind of after I ran sub 3 hours, I was like, okay, my wife's going to kill me if I have to keep going on long runs on a Sunday, and I got to roll 85 plus Ks weeks. And this is a little harder, where I've found certain races like High Rocks, I can still train an hour a day and do it, but I'm still rolling a lot more kilometers. So if I do need to go to a half marathon, I can. I hope that answers it, and I'm not kind of going on about it.
What about on the business side? How did things change when you decided to get into running, and what did that decision look like from a go-to-market standpoint?
If I'm honest, I mean, with LSKD running and our pillar there, we said we're going to take our time and build it. We weren't going to rush it. We started getting into running. We built our LSKD running Instagram account a couple of years ago and said, let's really build the running pillar over time. I just felt from learning from my history in action sports that you've got to build trust within the community. You can't just rush in and build into a community, from not only just signing athletes and, local athletes to run clubs to elite athletes, but you've got to build trust with the community. So from a business standpoint, it was very organic. We didn't say, okay, we're going to be the biggest thing in running, let's go all in on running. It was like, actually, we love running. We can see the community is growing. There's this crossover that we're calling functional fitness. If we could build our brand within the running community and build trust with them over the next 5 to 10 years, could we build something really special within LSKD running? So that's kind of the approach we took. And what I've kind of learned is don't rush it. You've got to build it over time, and to see, that our brand grow within the running community and what's happening globally, and the athletes we've signed, and, the local run clubs we work with, the people that are even getting into running is quite special. And when I say from a business side, there's one example of, we do a thing called every year. It started in 2021 where we ran 21 kilometers. So we did it as a few of us. We thought, let's run 21 kilometers on the 1st of January instead of drinking the night before, right? Like, let's go for a run.
Right.
We got to 2024 because we kept doing it every year, and decided that why don't we make this something around LSKD? And this year we had 26 for 26. So it was 26 kilometers. We had meetups all over the world. Our meetup on the Gold Coast had over 500 community. We're splitting it now between like a 5 and a 10K and a 15. And then the marathon is the larger. And then we have this goal to build it to 2042, which is the goal to a marathon. So we're now preparing for, 27 for 27. So on the 1st of January, we run 27 kilometers. But if you're just getting into running, we'll do a 15K, and then there'll be a 10K and a 5K, just to help with, someone that's just getting into it. And that's been quite special, because it just happened because we just ran it and thought, this is special.
Yeah.
And every year we would plan, and the group would get bigger and bigger. And we thought, actually, why don't we tie this around a marketing campaign around LSKD and really build it? So that's kind of how we've been building the brand, of like the authenticity of just learning from our community and what they're going through and how we build it. And then we have another event called Chase the 5, which is a 5K race. And we actually do a team event there. And then we have an elite 5K race that pays prize money. And then we do a community event that I raced, and it was team of 2, and you do 400 meter laps each to 5K. So it's a relay. So we have Chase the 5, and then we have our 27 for 27 coming up. Next year's 28 for 28. So we've kind of thought, how do we build our events that align to the communities to help get people into running, but also helps the elite athlete as well? and ties it back. And then you've got product development at the same time of how we think of our product when we're running. From my personal journey has been, I was running in a pair of rep shorts. By the time I was racing a sub 3 hour marathon, essentially 4 years later, I was racing in tights. And I thought, okay, the runner's journey goes from running when they start, they're running in
basketball shorts.
Yeah, they're running in a product, and then we can be the brand that helps inspire them to get into running. But we also will have that product once they get to that. Okay, cool. I'm going for a PB. I actually might need to wear a pair of tights or an underliner so I can put my gels in. Salt tablets, like maybe some Nurofen, depending on the race. It's just that preparation. So when we think of product, it's how do we help the athlete's journey as well, from first starting to when they're potentially going for a fast PB.
Quick one if you're heading to TrailCon this summer. We're going to be boots on the ground out there with the team from Popfly, our partners who are doing some great work in the creator, affiliate, and UGC space. If leveling up your UGC game is on your list this summer, and let's be honest, it should be, this is a good chance to connect with the right people in person. So if that's you, reach out to me directly and I'll make sure we link up around TrailCon. If you're enjoying Long Run Labs, we'd love it if you took a moment to leave a review. It only takes a minute, but it helps the show reach more people like you. If an episode has helped you think differently about your business or career, made a long run fly by, or taught you something new, scroll down in your podcast app and tap those stars and write a review. Thank you for your support. I love the activation and community engagement piece. I participated in an activation that Mount to Coast put on at the Boston Marathon. I'm writing a Substack on it, and it will come out before this episode is released, so I'll link to it. But the basic premise of the article was there's so much noise in marketing now, and so many of the activations can just be like one brand could swap out the logo and do the same activation, and it still makes sense. And so I effectively said something to the effect of like, what is the one thing that your brand can do that can't be replicated by another brand? And so you go to a major marathon these days and you can run a marathon's worth of shakeout runs on Friday and Saturday and Sunday, and everything is the same, and right, there's so much noise. And so what I love about the accountability of doing it on the first, like that's core to the DNA of your brand. I'm curious to know more about the decision around that specific activation or that specific activity, and how you think about, right, you're an apparel company, there are bajillion apparel companies out there competing for attention. How do you separate from everybody else?
I mean, it's a great question because, I've been a part of that as a brand with LKI and tried to watch what everyone was doing and kind of quickly do the same thing and think it was going to work. And we're not perfect. But I think for me, it was, if we could stand for something and have purpose and go back to that and build that internally first with our mission of 1% better, and then how we built our core values as a team and make decisions off that. And I think, we wouldn't be where we are without our team. Like, they play such a big part in it. And, we have now a team of over 700. So it has, in 6 years, it's been quite wild to see it. But how do we help every team member's journey through, the audiobooks that we will read and listen to, how we create that common language, how we always go back to decisions from our mission or our values from create a community, enjoy the journey, move fast, break shit, 1% better. There's a better way to do it, find it. Like, how do we make sure we always go back to those values? So I think for me, it's been about how do we make sure we show up with a why with everything that we do. And, building community takes time. It's not easy. It takes time, and you're making friends one community member at a time. And, our team is out there every single day doing local events, whether it's through our retail stores that we have in Australia, New Zealand, or our one in San Diego. And you got to build trust, and also, how do you help inspire that community member or help them on their journey, with our mission? So, we do vision and goals. We actually offer it on our website as well. So you can go on our website and do your vision and goals there. And we launched that at the start of this year. So it's all those like little 1%ers that I think makes it different and having purpose. Because there is a lot of brands out there that, like you said, can do that. And yeah, and then product goes back to it, right? We develop a lot of our own fabrics, and we're very obsessed with fabric fit and function, and we've learned so much over the last 15 years. But yeah, I think purpose is so important, and it always goes back to. And I'm so inspired by some of these bigger brands and what they've achieved, and what their missions are and what they stand for. And I'm like, well, what does LSKD stand for, and how do we do it internally first, and then it could bleed out into the community? I think is the most important part. And we started doing that in 2018 at a team of 12. And it's wild to think today, even being on a podcast in the US, sharing our story, it's like slowly coming to life. And we just know it takes time, and you have to stand for something, or are you just kind of just selling product?
Yeah, stand for something or stand for nothing, right? There are a number of different ways to look at that. We saw what Nike did at Boston, and my take on it is I wish they leaned into it more and didn't take down what they said. Even if you don't like the tone, it's a stance. And the stance is strong. We're for performance. It was at a marathon that literally excludes people based on pace. So it's not, a random marathon that you can sign up race day and get
Yeah.
in and run a 7-hour marathon. There's nothing wrong with running a 7-hour marathon, but you can't get to Boston with that unless you're doing charity, which is fantastic as well. As someone in the space, as someone who's taking a stand for something, and who your audience is, what did you think about the Nike piece?
Oh, it's an interesting one. I mean, so many brands go through so many different waves, and I mean, I'm so inspired by that story. Like, I love the book Shoe Dog. I'm a huge fan of what they've done, and what Phil Knight, and I've read that book so many times. It's just so inspiring, and what they did for the runner and the elite athlete is where they stood for. Right, it was the elite athlete. So I think for them, that message was going back to the elite athlete. I don't know what was going on and why they pulled it down. Obviously, there's probably some turmoil going on, which, I actually feel for them. I'm like, man, that sucks. Like, whatever's going on, it's kind of, kind of sucks. Like, I probably wouldn't have read it in that way, because it is Boston. But it's a hard one, right? Like, I mean, what they're going through is so unique because they are the biggest sportswear brand in the world. So the layers and how big it is, and, it can become your biggest fear as a brand, right? Like, we have really big goals as a brand. And, one of my fears is we can lose what we do as a team internally, and how we develop our team through personal development, and how we lose our mission and our values. If we achieve this and build a global brand from Logan and have teams all over the world, but almost we lost who we were and our essence, man, that would scare me. Like, that would really suck. And so I can only imagine what they're going through at the moment, through that. So it's hard to make a comment in that and have without knowing what they're going through. Because, man, CEO changes, dropping wholesale, which then grew other brands. Like, I lived in the wholesale world for 10 years. So at the time I was like, that makes sense. But then when you realize that's what built their community, that's how they started, you're like, okay, well, that actually makes sense now. So
Right.
yeah, it's I almost feel for them because they're kind of on the rebound. And I race in Vaporflies, so I'm a big fan of their shoe, and I train in a lot of other brand shoes as well. And I do race in Vaporflies. I've gone from through their models of 2, 3, 4. So yeah, and they're the elite shoe. I know them to race in, funny enough, and I train in other a lot of other brands from Asics, and and I've been testing other Sauconys for High Rocks. And so I'm kind of I look up to what these brands do in footwear, because that's not our space. So yeah, they've got a journey ahead of them. That's all I know.
I want to go back to something you were saying a little earlier. I've often had conversations with people about goals, business goals, and let's say you're doing $2 or $3 million a year, and it's a profitable enough business. You're pretty good, and you're doing well, and you don't have a lot of people to answer to, and you're probably putting a decent chunk in your pocket. To me, I feel like you've already won at that stage, and people seem to want to push past that. I think the kind of person that it takes to build a $100 million brand is not the kind of person that ends up being satisfied building a $2 million brand. I read a book by Andrew Wilkinson called Never Enough, and it's this hedonic treadmill of, well, I just need to be 2x where I'm at now, and then I'll be happy. And then you get there, and you're just like, I need to be 2x where I'm at now, and then I'll be happy. And He interviewed a bunch of people, and ranging from 100 million to 500 million to $1 billion net worth. And they were all ready to be happy at that next stage. So I'm curious for you, as someone that spent 5 years at 3 million a year, in that kind of, you're doing well. You don't have a lot of people to answer to, but it's not, it doesn't look like $1 billion business, and it doesn't really look like $100 million business. How do you sit with the satisfaction versus wanting more versus, the interaction of those?
It's a great question. And I do think about this stuff a lot as we're building and growing. And when I think of, we were sitting on 3 million a year for 5 years, we actually weren't profitable. It was actually really stressful. I had orders canceled from retailers, big retailers, like months out from shipping them to weeks I couldn't pay myself. So it was actually really stressful. Doesn't mean we couldn't have had a profitable $3 million business. The way I built it, the model wasn't working. And if I'm truly honest, I met my CFO in 2018 in July, and he actually came on 1 day a week on a government grant, $40,000. So we put in 20 and the government paid the 20. And I didn't even know if we could afford that. Matt Gelder, he was a legend, and he actually did pro bono for a couple of months because he had to fill out the forms himself. I was like, can you fill these out?
And he's like, you can't afford this, but you need this.
Yeah. Well, I think he reluctantly came on, to be honest. And now we say 7 days a week. And I actually got him reading books with me, and he didn't realize he was looking for his why. And he's read more books than me now. And what was really fascinating about that is, the week after he started, we changed the brand LSKD. So he's like, what have I got myself into, this brand, this kind of crazy founder, this full of energy. And, but anyway, I'll give it a go. And, he really taught me how to read a P&L and the art and the science of it. I wouldn't say I really knew deeply how to read a P&L. I loved product and marketing and building the brand and developing it, but I didn't understand that side of it. So it was the art and science. And to be honest, our first goal was to do 10 million in 5 years. It was like, let's do 10 million, let's be profitable, and let's build this sustainably. Let's not be silly. And I was like, that's all I want to do. If I'm truly honest, that's all I was like, I just want to be profitable. I want to be able to pay myself a wage, because I got to find a way to put my kids through school. My wife was working for the government, the local council. So I was very grateful. She had an awesome job before she joined LSKD in end of 2019. So that was the first goal. It was to do that, which I haven't shared it that much before, to be honest. And just brings it all kind of up of like what we were going through. And we ended up 10xing that, and now we're on track to do 200 this year. And so the first goal wasn't to grow that much. The first goal was to be a good brand, sustainable, as in growth wise. Right. But I think what I've learned, and I talk about this in the team a lot, is like, I've been in the game for so long as a teenager, from a teenager, I'm 39 now. And building a brand is really hard. It's really hard, and it takes time, and this doesn't happen every day. Like, I've seen it, I've struggled through it, and we're in this position that we have to be very grateful, because we have something very special, with our mission and our values and how we founded and our product and what we're developing. My first trip to China was in 2011 in my early 20s. So I got to learn the importance of relationships, product development. So seeing where we're at today and the brand growing and the community resonated, and you can't take that for granted every single day. Yes, we have goals, and we think we can build something really special globally from Logan in Australia. But yeah, the initial thing wasn't to do that. It was actually just to be profitable and build a good brand. Yeah. It went a lot quicker than that. But I think that was the irony of it, is when you take a step back and try not to do that, you focus on building great product, you focus on your community, you focus on these things and go, let's just do this well. Whereas I think what you can tend to do is go, we need to grow, we got to hit this number. So everything is around growth. Or if you focus on the fundamentals of what built you in the first place, and back to basics of your product for the community, what you're doing with marketing, how you're building your why. Yes, you've got digital marketing, and you've from paid ads to all the other things you do and what you stand for within your community. But go back to the fundamentals of what got you started. I think that can be the most important part, and you could end up growing it a lot more than you realize. And then you've got to learn when you're recruiting the team it's about finding, for me, it was always about finding team members that wanted to come on and be a part of a why, as opposed to just finding a skill set. I think if you're looking for team members that have a skill set, that's important at certain sizes. But if you can develop your team and become a part of something bigger than yourself, I think that's really special. So yeah, I can see, because in the early days I really wanted to grow. I was like, why aren't we big enough? What are we doing wrong? We need to be 5 million, not 3 million. But I was doing it for all the wrong reasons. And then when I switched my approach, it kind of shifted. And then COVID hit, and we went e-commerce. We closed our wholesale business down, and then in 2022 we opened our new office in Logan, and we put a retail store in. And we were purely e-commerce, and we decided to put a retail store in our head office. We have a gym on the second level. We do community events there. We give our space to local gyms and put on workouts. And we started to see the store grow, and our community could touch and feel our fabrics and feel the quality, because you didn't get that online. And we thought, wow, maybe we need to go into retail and really learn that. So kind of that was the evolution of what got us into retail, because our quality was getting better and better. The fabric mills we were working with around the world, we were able to develop our own. So we thought, if we can get into retail, you get that feeling as well, and then you create those community spaces from there. So yeah, I hope that answers it.
So that kind of answers. I was going to ask, like, how did you go from the 3 million to hundreds of millions? But really, just doing the thing. And I'm curious how influencers and athletes have played a role in the growth of the company, and how that's evolved over the years as well, because now everybody's an influencer versus, pre-pandemic.
In 2019, we used to sponsor a lot of, 2018, we sponsored a lot of action sports athletes, and we kind of slowed that down and said, let's really get into functional fitness athletes. We didn't have a lot of money, so we had to, and for me in the early days, it was the same thing again. It was build great relationships. And I think, when I think about athletes, influencers, anyone that's influential within their community, for us, it values first. How do you make sure you have a values alignment? Where we're looking for an athlete or, a key opinion leader. I think it's really around what we do is, making sure that value aligns to the brand, and first to build a relationship with them. It's not just about rushing to say, hey, that person has a big following and they could help we build a brand or even sell product for us. I think the first and foremost is building a relationship and understanding that, do they align, and can we help each other out? Can we make it a win-win and help build their brand? And the same goes our end as well, and they can help build our brand. And so that's something we think about a lot and talk about a lot. And, we've been signing, athletes since the early days, and, when I was a teenager, and it started from, I was at the track and I was really inspired by these pro athletes, and I got to become friends with them. And next minute I'm traveling to America with them and going to AMA Supercrosses with Matt Moss, getting to hang out with him for 3 weeks while he's racing, and they just became friends. So it was like, wow, how do we have that same approach? I think, so I think, and athletes can play a huge part. There's the brand storytelling that they play. Athletes are such a great way to use for inspiration. And then, yes, they can help you acquire a new community or grow product as well. But I think we've always lent into how do we build the brand as well and think long term. And then you've got influencers, key opinion leaders that still also play a part. But I also think it's changed a lot, right? Like, especially with running, high rocks, functional fitness in general, it's changing. People are all into fitness. So, for us, I mean, even down to the importance of gym owners and trainers, we work with a lot of local gyms. I think the trainer and the gym owner, they're the athlete, because they've worked so hard to build a community, and how can we support them and their journey as well, that may have from 100 to 300 plus members, and how do we play a part in helping them within their business? So there's lots of layers, I suppose, with athletes and key opinion leaders. But when we think about it, it's so important to think of values first, and building a friendship, and thinking long term, and how can we help them? How can we help them do their vision and goals? How can we help them on their future? And what's been really special is, we have quite a few athletes that work at LSKD, and one person specific, Brie Masters, she went to the Olympics for 100 meter. She was the first female to make the semifinal 100 meter since I think the year 2000. I'm not getting in trouble for saying that, but and she works in the team 4 days a week. She's traveling for, as an athlete around the world, as an Olympian 100 meter, but also looked after PR and actually looks after running athletes as well. So she's helping other athletes, but she's also an elite athlete. And so she essentially has a contract as an elite athlete and also works at LSKD as well. And I find that really special that, we can help an athlete, a professional athlete in their journey, potentially post being an athlete as well, and their career, and help them, give them purpose of wherever they want to go, whether it's at LSKD or somewhere else. We got to play that part. So I suppose that's one example as well as how we think about it, because having athletes work at LSKD, I think, is really special, and we get to learn a lot from them as well.
Yeah, I think the natural alignment is a huge unlock, and for some reason, it's not something that is like mission critical for a lot of brands. I've seen brands that are just interested in impressions and telling a story in a spreadsheet versus like strong alignment. And for context, I put together a 35 podcast network that works with brands who want to reach quality audiences and the types of audiences that they're looking for. And the conversation is always like, who are you trying to reach? What is the type of person that you care about and that cares about you? Versus, one impression is not equivalent to one impression. And some of the takeaways from this, I wrote a piece on small shows hit different, and the thesis there was like, a show with 500 listeners can have outsized impact against the audience size when quality is involved, when there's real buy-in, when it's something you've been using for a long time, and it kind of breaks the model of the CPM based buying, and in turn translates it into, or converts it into more like, what is the outcome you're looking for? And if the goal is to just align with people who believe in and love the product, it's harder to often demonstrate that in conversion metrics, but brand lift is often able to be seen if you can do it at scale when there's organic, really strong organic overlap. Okay, so you mentioned a while back the Landmark Forum. This is something that I did, 20 years ago myself. My sister did it. My dad had done it already, and my mom ended up doing it also. And it really changes the framework of interpersonal relationships, how you think about yourself, and so much more. Can you share more about what it meant for you, and how, A, why you brought it up, and B, what it's done for you, and if it's infused anything into the culture of your business?
Yeah, I think the reason I brought it up is it played a really big impact on my journey. Going back to why I did it as well, it was actually, I wasn't interested in learning. I wasn't interested in personal development. I kind of thought I knew everything, as I was saying, and I actually got introduced to it because I was kind of having some disagreements in the office, with my mom, and I thought, how can I strengthen the relationship? Because we were working together. We stopped working together in 2019. I did have to make her redundant, which was a tough part of the journey. But I decided, she mentioned that she went when her son was 12, and she has a great relationship with him, and he's 21. And I thought, well, why not? I'll sign up for this. Like, why don't I go along and go to Landmark? And so my wife and I took my mom, and if I'm honest, the first day I really struggled through it. I thought I ended up leaving right when I was meant to leave, and didn't stay till the end. It finished at 9, and I left at 9 on the dot. And then I went back on Saturday and really fell in love with it. It was a challenging 3 days, and I did the sessions after that. But what I really learned from it was, integrity. Your word, the voice in your head's not real. We can have so many limiting beliefs on our past, and our past can affect our present, which then can affect your future, and how you let go of the past to be present. And it took me quite a few years after that to really kind of lean into that more and more. I would say that, building this brand, I had a lot of self-doubt, a lot of imposter syndrome. Why would a kid from Logan growing up be able to build a brand? Like, there's not many brands from Logan. There's some amazing brands, but, in our space, there hadn't been. So, part of doing that course kind of led me to going to Toastmasters to learn how to public speak, and then led me to reading books. And when I think of it in an office environment, if you can all be present, you can have your word, there's something really special about it, that you can all have a common language and work together and get things done faster. And essentially, with our value, move fast, break shit, dare to think differently, nothing's impossible. Like, that's what's possible. So it wasn't something I tried to implement into the business, actually. Like, I'd done it. I would talk a lot about it in the office, and some team members actually said, can we go to this course? And I thought, really? Do you think we should implement it? And this was after I tried to get team to go, and I thought, you know what? I'm not going to get anyone to go. Like, I'm getting a lot from it. And a few years later, that's when we changed in 2018-19. When we changed in 2018, team members started saying, I'm seeing the shifts in the brand. I'm seeing that the brand is really staying true to what it's saying. And they said, can we go to this course? And I thought, okay, like this is quite special. Okay, well, this is what it's going to entail. It's a big 3 days. And it's a very powerful course. It's really special. Like I said, it's not the easiest, but you get so much from it. And I always say to the team, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that, the things I learned, and, how to stay present. You can create stories and you can be meaning-making machines and all the things that come from it. So, it's a special one. And I use it because that was the start of when I was really seeking to understand and wanting to learn. That was kind of the ticker. And it took quite a few years after that to really get into books. But that was kind of the kickstart of my journey of personal development.
The other question I had for you, it's 2026. Business and building a business is totally different than it was 20 years ago, even 3 years ago. If and how are you using AI in your business?
It's a great question. We're very early days in AI. We use it a lot just on a day-to-day basis. From, you can write a strategy pretty quickly. You can upload things, really quickly and learn. It can give you, from reports. But I think, the power of AI and what's possible, I think what excites me the most is you can get information quicker, to learn faster, to make better decisions. I think that's the exciting part about it. So we're using it. I would say we're still early days compared to like where tech is at. But we're using it, and I think it's quite exciting of what we could learn from it. But I don't think it changes, what we do as a brand, where we're within the community, and you've got to be out there to learn. You don't get that from a spreadsheet. You got to be out in the community and learning and getting feedback and constantly, how do you improve a product? And you could hear something that you might not be doing a good job of, and you can go back and improve it from that, or working in a store and listening to community. So you don't get that from AI.
I think it creates more of a desire for the in-person and human connection, because there's so much slop out there that exists. But yeah, from the infrastructure and reporting and metrics standpoint, it makes things move a whole lot faster for sure.
Yeah, that's what I've found. There's some really cool things you can do with it and learn quicker. But from like a day to day, we got to be out in the community and learning. And how do we, keep sharing our mission and values?
What's been your experience with fundraising and raising capital over the years? Has that been something you've needed to lean on? Is it something you've been able to avoid? How have you capitalized the business?
Yeah, we have been lucky enough to been able to avoid that. We're self-funded, so we've been very lucky. We've funded it through cash flow. Like I mentioned before, when I met our CFO Matt, myself, the art and science, we've worked really hard on that. And we keep reinvesting back into the brand. It's a big focus of how do we keep building. We opened 12 retail stores last year. So it all went back into opening stores and learning and team and development. And so, yeah, we haven't raised money. We're self-funded, which I think is really special. Actually, we've been able to do that. So, and we work really hard, and, we still got a long way to go. I think what I've learned is, my journey's only really just starting. Like you said, it takes time. And when you read a lot of founder stories, some of the founders are in 40s, 50s when they're first, starting something that becomes quite big. And I still feel like it's day one and I've got a lot to learn. But yeah, we're self-funded, which is quite special.
What does success mean to you?
Oh, well, we were chatting about that this week. What, like in 20 years time, what are you going to be thinking about? Like myself as a founder. And we talk about this a lot of like, for me, looking back on the journey, I think we can build something really big. And what would excite me is in 20 years, not only are we still doing it plus, and doing something bigger than ourselves.
Jason, appreciate the chat, and hopefully we can connect and share some miles at some point too. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Long Run Labs. If you like this episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's building something of their own. We'll be back next Tuesday with more stories at the intersection of endurance and entrepreneurship from the people shaping the outdoor industry in ways big and small. Until then, keep showing up, keep asking questions, and we'll see you out there.